Now I get to move into the portion of the day where we start talking about, okay, we've got a bunch of great ideas here, but that can be a lot to decide how to navigate. And that brings us to a topic that sounds like a business topic, but like the others that we've had before now and the ones that we'll have coming up, change management is about way more than just business process. And that's why I'd like to introduce you to Kari Ginsburg, who is going to share how to disrupt change before it disrupts you. And often that's what we're trying to do, right? Um, is just have a game plan for uh, being able to impact and affect and be intentional about how we go about things in life. So with your health, with your business, with how you do it together, change management is a big deal and being intentional is a big deal. And I'd like to bring on, please, Kari Ginsburg and have you. Hi. Ooh, I love that.
Hey, thank you. I figured it's Friday. Everybody deserves a little sparkle.
Absolutely. I appreciate the sparkle.
Thank you.
Um,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please,
go
Julianne.
ahead.
I was going to say, as we get started, I do want to say I'm just outside of Washington, D.C. We've had some really exciting weather updates today, and we are imminently expecting the arrival of Tropical Storm Ophelia. I am fine. We are safe. The weather isn't actually supposed to start until after I'm done talking today, but if for some reason I zap, I am prepared to like throw on my cell and log back in and pick up where we go. So I appreciate any flexibility, but I just wanted to let you know it might get a little weird, and so we might have to just embrace the change and disrupt it back as it arrives this evening here.
For sure. I imagine you've got your, speaking from a California earthquake
Oh
perspective,
yeah, you
you've
all
got
know.
your water,
Okay,
you've
sorry.
got your food, you're good.
Yeah, we're fine. We're fine.
Okay.
Would it be all right if I pull up my slides and get started?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. I'd
Rad.
hear a little bit more too about kind of how you got into your profession and, what it is that makes it kind of juicy for you.
Ooh, that's a hard question to answer. So I got into change management. I didn't know that change management was actually something that I could do. I was just always, as I was coming up as a professional and then as a young leader, I was always just surprisingly assigned to projects that were a little bit controversial, and they were in the area of really supporting big impacts to people across the organization. And I was doing this when I was a teacher. I was doing this when I was an event planner. I was doing this when I was a leader in the federal sector. I was doing this when I was a leader in corporate. And in right around 2010, when my oh, this is so corporatey. But when my PMP was coming up for renewal, I was looking for a certification that felt a little bit more like me. I'm not a math person. I didn't really love sort of the structure, rigidity of project management and the project management certification. And at that time, this idea about change management was coming into the foreground of business, how to support people and organizations through change. And I thought, well, I'm looking at this and it's about educating and it's about communicating and it's about listening to people and speaking on behalf of them and representing them to the business. And it's about focusing on the benefits and the impacts. And I thought, well, this is what I'm doing every day. And this is what I really love. Maybe this is a place that I can explore and spend a bit more time really educating myself and being on the forefront of this revolution of bringing the people back into business. And so I joined the Association of Change Management Professionals as a founding member. Shortly thereafter, when they released their standard and their accreditation, I became one of the first 500 people in the world to be I have to read it off the wall, like my little plaque is right there because I don't want to get it wrong, but to become a certified change management professional. And that is a certification that I'm extremely proud of and I hold to this day. But it's all about the people. And I think so often when we are in business, I mean, even just going about our days, right? the way that we get things done is how we interact with the people around us and how we engage either through customer service or even just like in line at Trader Joe's, right? How we engage in those instances with those human connections. It's really special. It's really meaningful. And it has a lot of impact on how you feel then about that exchange and then how that carries into the rest of your day or your interaction or your thought about that business or that person or that industry or what have you. So I don't know if that's a really sexy answer about change management, but as we get into our conversation today, which is how to disrupt change before it disrupts you, I mean, we are constantly continually responding to change, right? Like change in how we're doing business, change in our personal relationships, change in how we're able to interact with our world. And in many ways, it often feels like change is in control. And I often am asked, and I spend a lot of this is what keeps me up at night, thinking about what if we really could reclaim some of that control. And so during our conversation today, I would love to show you and to learn from you about how we can harness the elements of delivering change and redirect them into influencing those shifts instead of reacting to them. And I will say, I have my chat open. I love to respond to chat as we go. So you are welcome to drop your thoughts, drop your reactions and your responses into the chat. I do think this is a small yet appreciative group right now. So if you feel brave and you would like to come off mute and like speak up, I'm also happy to like chat with you like by voice. But as we get started, I am curious, how do you define change management? Or what do you know about it? And I invite you to actually drop that answer into the chat today. So how do you define change management or what do you know about it? I'm going to keep chatting as you start to drop your thoughts in. So through the years, I have really tried to explain what change management is to people, to strangers, to family. You don't know anything about change management? Rad, here we go. To business colleagues and really reinforce the value of change, right? Change with a capital C. And these people, strangers, family, they tend to get a little lost in like the textbook definitions, right? So the Association of Change Management Professionals defines change management as the practice of applying a structured approach to transition an organization from a current state to a future state to achieve expected outcomes. That's my textbook definition voice. ProSci, which is a methodology of change management that I am actually a disciple of, they define change management as the process, tools, and techniques to manage the people side of change in order to achieve the required business outcomes. And there are other process of change. Oh, okay. There are other change methodologies like LaMarche or Lewin or Cotter that define this all similarly. So in the chat, right, we don't know anything about change management. William asked process of change, question mark, totally rad. Julianne says, making it clear and easier to cope with. Yes, these are all super valuable. And hopefully throughout our time together today, you will not only learn a little bit more about change, although this isn't a change management primer, so to speak, but you're going to have some really good change management tools to come away with. But we'll talk about how to begin to build up a process of your own to potentially approach the changes that you were experiencing in the day-to-day, or how to respond to instead of react to things, these different inputs that are arriving to you that then you need to incorporate and deal with in your day-to-day. And William, if you wanted to talk more specifically about processes of change, we could totally chat after and outside of this summit and talk a little bit more about change processes. So for the purpose of our conversation today, this is the definition that I want us to all use, right? Managing the people side of transformation. Transformation can occur within organizations that impacts their structure or their ability to operate and do business. Transformation can impact people's roles and how they do their jobs. It can impact processes and systems and structures and technologies in which they operate. No matter the impact, we are expecting people to transform or to change from where they are today into a new way of being, functioning, and operating. This is really the caterpillar, the cocoon, the butterfly, right? This is the transformation like we're talking about. Yes, so many possibilities. And we do change management as a discipline, as a practice. Maybe it happens behind the scenes. Maybe you don't know you're doing change management, but we do it because we have been preconditioned to think that change is hard and change is scary. And it is, and it isn't. Introducing a new financial system to a business with an employee population of 26,000 people is hard because of the breadth of the people who are impacted. Having to go to a new grocery store because yours is closed for renovations is annoying, but it's potentially less hard. And certainly, that's not necessarily scary. And if you were here at this event, I suspect that you have received news that is both hard and both scary. And having to manage personal changes with things coming at you left, right, and center at work can be very, very wearing. So regardless of the transformation that we are undergoing, we are constantly, continually responding to this change. So for what it's worth, this is what I'm known for, right? I bring people and organizations from identity crisis to industry disruptors, and we are going to do that today. We are going to become change disruptors in a new way. But before we move into that, I want to reiterate, this isn't really a primer of how to conduct change management. I know I got a little bit textbooky. I got a little bit like, this is why we do change here, but we're going to move on and have a softer side of conversation change moving forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to dig into how we can make things less hard and more responsive than reactive when it comes to change. So here we go. If I can get my slides to advance. There we are. Okay. You can call them elements. You can call them levers. Whatever word feels right to you, you may use to describe the hows of changing change. These are the areas where you can really influence how much or how little control you cede to the change. This is where you can disrupt change before it disrupts you, honestly. So top to bottom, how we communicate the change, how we're going to talk about it, how we champion or sponsor the change and lead through it, how we support the people who are impacted by the change, or how we ourselves are supported by the change, how we build awareness to prepare for the change, and how we figure out what really matters so we can balance emotional and energy draws in response to the change. So we're going to spend just a few minutes on each. So first and foremost, communicating about change is important for several reasons. Whether it's in the context of organizational changes or personal changes or even broader societal shifts, effective communication helps minimize uncertainty, which can help reduce the unknown and provide people with a sense of what to expect. It can build trust and help people to adapt and make adjustments. It can maintain or even boost morale. It can help you do that I am thriving power pause effectively. It can ensure that everyone understands the goals, the priorities, and the values associated with the changes, which helps prevent conflicts and confusion in response to whomever is impacted by the change. And so I invite you for just a moment to think about when you have heard a change was coming and you didn't have all of the details, right? Your imagination likely got creative to fill that void of facts. There may have been rumors or gossip or misinformation. And once that change came, you may have had more pushback to overcome or more realignment or course correction work that was needed. We avoid this, the rumors, the conjecture, the misinformation, the gossip, the imagination doom scroll, by communicating clearly and consistently and providing accurate information as we have it, right? We're not always going to have all the information at once, but as soon as we have it, we share it out. We address concerns by actively listening to feedback and welcoming feedback by anybody who's facing issues as they arise. We create a structured plan that can include timelines or milestones and action steps, and we share that plan when and as appropriate. We foster a culture of open and respectful discussions about that change, right? Welcoming that feedback. And we prevent overwhelm. We maintain empathy, even within ourselves. We honor our humanity, and we monitor our tone, because if we give into the sky is falling, the sky will most certainly fall. How and when we talk about the change is the easiest way to interrupt the momentum of change and redirect the story to its most important elements. What we need to know now and why. And I'm going to give a more specific example of this a little bit later. So hang in there with me. How we lead through it. This one's going to feel a little bit more controversial, potentially, because I'm sure that you've heard that consistent, active leadership is essential to an organization and a team's and a change's success. That if you want to deliberately disrupt the change, you need to be aware that this can lead to negative consequences, to resistance, to potential harm to individuals and organizations. You don't need your staff to mutiny. Now, as a leader, you can take several actions that can shift the tone and the conversation across changes across the way that you were doing work in the day-to-day, all while still making way, metaphorically, for ducklings. Disruptor, not disruptive leaders, also known as transformational or innovative leaders, are individuals who challenge the status quo, who introduce new ideas. They drive significant change within organizations and industries, sometimes just by showing up in a sparkly top. And while their leadership style can really be disruptive in the sense that it breaks away from what is expected, what is traditional, what is sort of like within the box, it often brings about positive impacts. So you can use the emoji, you can drop a chat in the box. How many of you who are present today consider themselves to be disruptors? I certainly do. Yes, Julianne. Woo! Yes, Kari. Yes, yay. Oh, my people, I'm so happy you're here with me. Okay, so right. So our brand of change leadership, it doesn't mean it is the most effective, but it can be most effective when it involves a balance between innovation and stability, right? Ensuring that disruptions are purposeful. They are aligned with the organization's or the community's values and goals. And additionally, it is crucial to manage change effectively and address the concerns of those who are affected to make sure that we are focusing on the positive outcomes of our disruptor leadership. So yes, it's true that being disruptive just for the sake of being disruptive can have negative consequences on change. And it's not recommended that you aggressively or like dramatically shift course of action or overturn a strategically mapped out change management plan when it's in process, unless you absolutely have to. And I'm going to give you permission to dramatically shift a course of action when these things happen. When the timeline changes for some reason that is outside of your control. When you lose critical team members or support systems. When there are competing, unexpected priorities. Most basically in business, when funding dries up. When there is an unexpected loss of any kind. When there is a personal experience that significantly impedes on your time and your focus. This is when I am giving you permission for your leadership to move from disruptor to disruptive. You can also, in those moments, encourage a culture of creativity and experimentation in return to the disruption. You can use this to foster an environment where the derailing becomes new ideas, becomes new approaches, that everything is encouraged and explored. This can lead to groundbreaking products or services or processes or even organizational cultures, or quite honestly, the way you run your household or the way you govern your life. This is another instance of where you can use the hows to influence change. I love this picture so much. When was the last time you were on a seesaw as an adult? Supporting others through change, whether it's in a personal or a professional context, it requires empathy. Empathy is one of my core values. This is the number one thing I tell my clients, and quite honestly, they are probably tired of hearing about it. Whether you were changing a form that people use to submit vacation requests or choosing a vegan lifestyle, there is going to be a very real, very human emotional reaction to this shift, to this change. And remember, change is a process. William, change is a process in and of itself. And individuals may go through stages of denial and resistance and exploration and ultimately acceptance. And if that sounds familiar, that's because it's also the cycle of grief. You are building awareness and desire for change. You are introducing new knowledge. You're building up people's, including your own ability to adjust to the change, and you are reinforcing the benefits, or if there's no benefits, you are looking for the silver linings and the outcomes time and again, even long after whatever it was has arrived and happened. Your role as a supporter is to help people navigate these stages with understanding and care. Effective support during times of change can lead to smoother transitions, reduce stress, increase confidence in facing future challenges. It can create opportunities for individuals out beyond you to connect with and support each other, to find and provide effective resources that feel just in time. But if there's only one thing that you take away from this slide, I would love for it to be this. This works both ways. While you may be in the seat to support others, you yourself may also deserve, no, I'm even going to say that differently. You yourself deserve to feel supported. You deserve empathy. You don't have to take everyone's emotions when you have and need the space to manage your own. How and where can you collaborate or partner through the change to share the weight? How or where can you delegate or redirect tasks or duties to someone else's plate to maximize their super skills and support their growth while giving you time to adapt in a way that also feels meaningful? Just because you're leading doesn't mean you're not impacted. And just because you're the champion doesn't mean you don't also deserve empathy and kindness. How can you make things easier on everyone? Most importantly, yourself, truthfully, by sharing the load, because you cannot do it all, nor should you. So you can approach change with a proactive and a structured mindset, right? We talk about change plans, which makes the preparation process easier and sometimes more manageable. You can also make a plan that's rock solid and then like light it on fire and throw it out the window and embrace the chaos. The former gives you something to follow, to surrender to in those moments when the rest of your responsibilities and experiences need a more specific or particular type of attention. And you are looking for the ease of not having to make decisions and just really sort of follow along. The latter, the chaos of it all, has more of a sense of like leap and the net will find you. And through that, you gain maximum flexibility. But take a moment and think, are you a structured person or are you a chaos monster? Do you embrace it? Or are you somewhere in between? And you can let me know in the chat. And if it needs some qualification, you are welcome to add that into the chat as well. I have seen leaders effectively drive change through both modes of preparation, and it's usually a matter of personal preference. Sometimes it's even just a matter of the day of the week and what else is happening or what else hit them when they walk through the door. But no matter your approach, you have to accept that the change is coming and understand what it is so that you know how much or how little you want to prepare for it. So William is a structure and a chaos monster. Awesome. And Julianne needs some of both. Amazing. That's great. Yes, Kari, it's a business of Kari's, you and I. We both spell our name the same, and we are oftentimes chaos monsters, and that's awesome. But there is room for both, and there is superpower from both. And if we are thinking about supporting or being supportive, this is also a place where we can look to somebody who is more structured or look to someone who is more chaotic and invite them to share the weight or to contribute to the conversation. So that way we know where we can sit back or where we can rely on them or they us in these moments of transformation. This one's my absolute favorite. As business owners, as business leaders, as people just leading our lives, it is really easy to buy into. Oh, one second. So in the chat came a question. Could Chaos Monster be called improviser? Tell me a little bit more about what you mean by improviser. My background is in theater, so I'm saying yes and to this, but I want to know what you mean by improvise.
Well, the term chaos monster just feels uncomfortable to me. So,
Fair enough. Thank you for finding comfort. I love that. Then yes, so where are you finding more relief in improvising?
well, it's just someone who they may not plan as much as a structured person, and they just kind of go with the flow. And it's like if you're a jazz musician versus
Yeah.
a classical musician.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. Thank you, William. Yeah, absolutely. Please use the phrase that feels most comfortable and most confident to you. I never want you to sit in discomfort, especially when in relation to things that we are sharing together. But I love this idea of improviser. You adapt, you listen, you take in, you respond truthfully in the moment. You are flexible. There's a sense of play there too. Yeah, rad. Thanks, William.
And chaos monster just makes me think of Cookie Monster. So
I mean, there's nothing wrong with cookies.
nothing wrong with Cookie Monster.
That's gonna make me happy.
Yeah. Good. Julianne, you came off mute. Was there something else that you wanted to say? No, just pro cookies. Amazing. Carrie Lynn says in the chat, if I try to plan, I definitely get overwhelmed. I would much rather just deal with things as they come. Improviser sounds like it has more control. Yeah, improviser is potentially maybe sort of that middle ground, right? Like Julianne was saying, you need a little bit of both. Guardrails, I like guardrails, then do some experimenting and playing inside them with a safety net. Yes, when you know sort of where the boundaries are, you can just make up the rules within them. I love all of this. Thank you all so much for sharing. And yeah, Carrie Lynn, I love that you have found a way to sort of harness the overwhelm and just handle things as they come. I know that people, I mean, I'm a Virgo, which means I'm a little bit type A, even though I've already self-described as a chaos monster. And so I always jokingly say, like, I can go with the flow. If you could just tell me like where the flow is and like when the flow is happening, I'm very happy to go with it. Like, is there a time the flow is starting? So maybe I am a guardrails person with a little bit of coloring outside the lines, but within the guardrails. I don't know, but I really appreciate this. Thank you all for this chat. This is awesome. So picking up where we stopped, right? It is really, really easy to buy into the hype of productivity culture. And this can lead to procrastination with, and William spoke so beautifully about this earlier today. And if you didn't listen, please go back and listen to the replay or like buy the VIP. So that way you can have his words of wisdom forever. This is amazing. But to say yes to things that don't align with our organizational or personal values is buying into the hype of productivity culture. To keep the business machine moving forward can be buying into the hype of productivity culture. To find ourselves feeling overwhelmed or burnout or confused by how we got here, hype of productivity culture. And we can see this in our people too, with constant change, demands on time and energy coming from multiple directions, right? We see that people, including ourselves, lose their luster. We can see that they lose their momentum. We can see that they lose connection to the work that they're doing. Most basically, the things that used to bring them joy or light them up, it's just no longer doing that. And in those instances, we have a choice. We can keep driving forward as is, fully expecting downtime or slow times to come at some point, or we can pump the brakes and ask, what really matters right now? And notice I didn't say stop. Stopping will feel impossible. Sometimes the momentum of change means that stopping altogether is practically impossible. But you can let the air out or pull the lever or pump the brake or insert your preferred metaphor right here. How do you know that this is the time for change? What are the internal drivers or motivators to make this change? What are the external factors that are inviting you? And I put inviting in air quotes because sometimes it's a voluntold situation, not a true invitation, but are inviting you to step into that change. What happens if we make only a little bit of the change. What happens if we don't change at all? Are you clear on what are the expected outcomes? Drop it in the chat for me. When was the last time you actually paused to ask yourself what really matters when it comes to changes in your business or in your life or in that liminal in-between space that as leaders or business owners, we often find ourselves operating in? When was the last time you really paused? Last week. Well done. Well done. 2 weeks ago. Yes. Yes. Oh, I celebrate you. And before that, 2 months ago. Okay. Right now, you're doing this weekly. Yes, my friends, I love that this is part of your practice. I invite you to tighten that time from 2 months to 2 weeks to maybe a bit more weekly, right? I'm not going to pretend that there's not an emotional tax at play here, right? I know several of my fellow speakers have offered guidance and will continue to offer guidance around self-care and balance and productivity without punishing yourself and how to avoid procrastination, or maybe it serves you a little bit in these areas, but don't let it take over your life. And so I'm not going to rehash their talking points. What I will say is this: when you are balancing work and home and medical appointments and other life things, the most important how on your side is this one: focusing on what really matters, because this is where time lives. Time to take a breath, time to nourish your body, time for sticking your head outside, time for laughter, maybe time to cry in the shower if that's your jam, time to celebrate and ring a bell. When you feel the most like there is no time, this is when you have to pull that lever. Identifying what really matters serves as the compass that guides your change efforts in the right direction. It enables you to focus, to align, to motivate yourself or motivate others, to communicate effectively, to ultimately increase the likelihood of achieving meaningful or sustainable change, or truly to just get through the transition in one piece. So I'm not going to overlook the unifier of the space that we're sharing. You are here because you want to continue your business with the very real and very wearing third job of being in cancer treatment or in recovery. And I say third job because you are balancing the role of patient against the role of professional and the role of personhood. Your time, your energy, and your schedule can be unpredictable, and that there's literally only so much you can do. And I know from personal experience, it is infuriating when your body remembers what it was like to do more. And I'm sorry about that, because it is incredibly turbulent and it is really damn unfair. And I know what the textbooks say, and I know what the white papers say, because I have contributed them. To find balance between our personal lives, our professional lives, and our patient selves, we need to find harmony. I'm sure this sounds very familiar to you. We have to find harmony. We need to find balance. We need to find integration. In our personal lives, we should embrace change as an opportunity for growth or continuous learning and evolving while maintaining our core values and relationships. In business, change should be managed strategically with clear objectives and communication, ensuring that it aligns with the organization's mission and the well-being of its employees. Sorry, I put my textbook voice on a little bit again there. What they don't really tell you ever is how to marry the two. This is where the 5 hows of changing change come in, right? Communication, leading, supporting people, preparation, focusing on what really matters. I want to give you a couple of examples. I'm going to start with one, and then hopefully we'll have time for a second. So there is a lot of conversation happening right now about encouraging people to physically return to their workplaces, to brick and mortars. And if you spend any time on LinkedIn these days, like once a week, there's somebody polling their network, asking if anyone's company is actually doing this well. And more often than not, organizations are conducting focus groups or listening sessions with employees to learn more about what it would take for them to come in. This is a big, big change. This is a big people impact change. And in those conversations that businesses, organizations are having with their people, when they can get beyond the resistors who just flat out refuse to come in, here's what they're hearing. They're hearing, I get to spend more time with my family now. I can drop my kids off or meet the bus. I can attend the school concerts and the classroom parties. I can attend my partner's business lunch. I don't worry about getting a call that someone's sick and needs to be picked up. They're hearing, my home office setup is more conducive to my productivity and how I like to get things done. Plus, no one's dropping by to interrupt me. I can do everything at home that I did in the office and more efficiently. Plus, I like my snacks here. And third, I've gotten 2.5 hours back in my life, which I previously spent on commuting. I use this time to exercise or go to therapy or take care of myself and participate in activities that support my well-being. And yes, there are others, but these are the big three. And so which of our hows do you think that we can use to disrupt the future of working before it disrupts us? I'm going to see if I can drop these into the book. There we go. I'm going to put them here just so you have them in case you also wanted to jot them into your workbook if you missed them from the screen earlier. You can think about this as I start to talk through, but I would love to see what you think. So we can certainly talk about the benefits of communal working all day, but unless there's a felt need by your people, it's going to ring like a hollow business-driven change. We can lead with strength and empathy and understanding, but in the end, leaders are going to have to make an unpopular, potentially unilateral decision. So it leaves us with support, preparation, and focus. What really matters, how can we support each other? Yes. So what accommodations can we make to honor the very real human needs of our people? And likely ourselves too. What flexibilities are there at our disposal, and where can we invite innovation to uncover new ones? What do we want our work environments and our workplace cultures to be in this para-pandemic world? And what's beyond this new normal? How long can we give people to get ready for this adjustment? And what checkpoints can we put in place to reevaluate their needs, their wants, and their desires and drivers along the way? And why? Why does it really matter that people physically report somewhere for work? If during those 2 very difficult years, we told people you can do it from home, what is meaningful about coming back to gather together to do the work every day? How can that be incentivized? Also from the chat, we can trust that what people say they need, they really need. Yes, we can trust people. Asking questions. Another from the chat. We can consider a new business model that leverages what they need. Yes, it comes down to that. What really matters, what we need. We talked about win-win earlier. Yes, looking for those win-wins. Absolutely. Thank you. So asking questions and focusing on that support, that preparation, that focus can really create something extraordinary and new without just doing all the same old stuff in response to a business demand. We can reclaim control of the pace, the timeline, the business model, the business need, just by leaning into these hows. And I have another example. It's a bit more of a personal one. And I have just a little exercise, a couple more slides after this. How are we doing on time, Julianne? Would it be all right if I share a bit more of a personal example?
Yeah, we have about 15 minutes, so you can use 10 of that.
Amazing. Okay, great. Good. So, I am a brain tumor survivor. In 2012, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And at that time, I had been married for 2 years, which apparently is still a honeymoon period. We had recently bought a house. We had a 4-year-old dog and a 2-month-old puppy. I was working as director of workforce management for a federal agency, and I had really, really extremely hard and very demanding executives. And it was a highly unionized workforce, although there were some non-union employees in there too. And it was about a 22,000 person organization. So it was like a big it was busy. There were a lot of things at play. And also we were thinking about expanding our family, having children. We were thinking about having kids at that time too. So like there was a lot going on. And I got this diagnosis. And while I was very, very lucky that the tumor itself was benign, because of the size and the symptoms that I was having in relation to it, my well-being and my life was at risk. And so we had to take action and very quickly, so that way I could be here. And because we knew what type of tumor it was, we had sort of ideas about what the process would be to shrink it a little bit to then have it removed. But we didn't quite know the outcomes of my abilities or impairments coming out of a fairly significant brain surgery procedure. And so I want to go topic by topic on these hows, and you can see the hows in the chat. But in terms of communication, right, I had 3 areas where I needed to sort of like brace to start talking about things. I had work. So how much or how little was I willing to share and with whom? Family and friends, kind of the same conversation. How much or how little was I ready and willing to share with people? And who are the people who I knew that this was time to sort of let them go? Because our relationship had gotten to a point just naturally through our lives where we were no longer being the best for each other, right? Things had potentially sort of staled, or I knew that they would look at this experience to like trauma bond, and I didn't need that. We didn't have time for that. And then I mentioned this briefly before, but I'll bring it forward again now. I'm a professional actor, and so I was directing a play at that time. In my copious free time, that I also then needed to figure out how to like get the play in such a place that I could hand it over to a director to take it over the finish line to opening night. So those were my 3 areas, or my 3 buckets, where I needed to communicate that I was unwell, that I was going to be fine, that here were the changes that needed to happen. This is when they were going to happen. Do you have any questions? And bye, I'm gone. I had to also figure out like what messaging to use to demonstrate the serious, but sort of model the tone or the response that I wanted from people back. Because I am sure several of you have experienced a situation of sharing a news of diagnosis or treatment, and then having to handle the grief of others while you are mourning your own experience. And that's a lot. And as a person who values empathy, I had to reckon with myself how much I had to give, quite honestly, how little I had to give, because I had to hold a lot of space in my heart and my mind and my soul and my stomach for me and for the person that I woke up beside every day and for the people who birthed me or who I was genetically aligned to, who are of value of me and my chosen family, right? You have to choose how much you do or do not give. For leadership, oh, my friends, I broke. I mean, I broke so hard. But I broke in a particularly unhealthy way. I gave myself 1 full day to mourn, to like really wallow. And then I got to work. Like I gave myself a day to just be like, to go through the cycle of grief, to push through the cycle of grief. And then the next morning I woke up and I like put ice cubes on my face as I was getting ready. And I got to work at work and at home and in theater. And I started lining up and putting a plan in place. I mean, I leaned into structure and away from chaos monster / improviser in this moment, because I felt like the only way to get the things done that were of meaning or of value to me, and we're going to talk about that more in just a minute, I needed to have a plan in place that I could follow, that I could surrender to in those moments when I felt overwhelmed and I didn't know what to do. I could just go to the next thing on the list. I could pull out the piece of paper. I could open up the checklist. I love checklists. For support, I was really explicit about where I needed help and where I was asking for help from my family. We have 2 dogs. We had a house. Could somebody come? And I mean, I had an 8-week recovery when I got home from the hospital. That also involved doctor's appointments and occupational therapy and physical therapy. And my husband, my partner, still needed work, and he needed relief as a caregiver. And so who could come and sit with me while I slept on the couch? Or who could come drive me to maybe not a doctor's appointment, but who could take me to physical therapy, or maybe like take me for ice cream if I was feeling like I had it within me to go out for a day, or who could walk with me to the end of the driveway and back to get some fresh air, to also just give everybody a moment of peace and a moment of stillness. Who could I rely on? And this also happened at work. Like, what did time away mean at work? Who was ready to step into a leadership role? Who could I challenge to step into a leadership role? Who could I champion into a leadership role? How could I become more human beyond sort of like the business machine that I was at work for an organization that didn't really value humanity? How could I sort of bring that or introduce that in a way that demonstrated strength and not weakness? Because I never in this moment wanted to feel or appear weak. Preparation. I planned for catastrophe. Like I had a decision tree that I put on our refrigerator of like, if this, then that, if this, then this other thing, right? And like, my husband laughed the first time I put it up, but I felt much better having it there, because I felt like if I had to let go and just focus on healing, flowcharts do rule. If I had to let go and just focus on healing, I knew that there was something that like he could go to and be like, well, this is what Kari would want me to do, or this would be sort of wishes in this moment. And in some instances it worked. In some instances it was like, if we forget to pull out the casserole that somebody made us, like, this is what my Chinese food order would be. Like, it was very granular to even that, but I felt strong. I felt like I could control things if I was that detail oriented, right? And we're laughing about it, but that's good. This is something to sort of like laugh about now. Like, in the moment it felt silly putting it up there, but like, I like that now we can smile and laugh about it as being silly, because it felt silly in a bad way, but now it's silly in a fun way. We got our house in order. I did the big book. I don't know if anybody else has done the big book, which is, mine was a spreadsheet. It's probably evolved since 2012, but it's like all of where do you find all of your important documents? What are your passwords? What are your bank account information? Where do people find your retirement account? Those types of things, in case something really catastrophic did happen. And we needed to get more practical at what were my wishes, for beyond. So I did the big book, right? At that point, we didn't have a will. We didn't have a power of attorney. Like, I was like pulling all of the hows, my friends. I'm almost through this list too. But what really matters, this is truly where I leaned in the hardest. I got very clear, and I was really upfront with people about what I wanted my recovery to be like when I got home. And I got very clear on who I could trust to take care of me when I was most vulnerable. And I got very clear on who I could ask to take care of the people that I love when I was not able to take care of them. And I also said goodbye to what really no longer served me. And I just left it behind so that I could focus on owning the power of the new me after this moment of diagnosis and this moment of treatment, because that was a defining moment, but it wasn't going to define me. From the chat, Carrie Lynn says, when you have no control over something, it's normal to want to have control over everything that you can. Absolutely. And that's okay. And that is normal. Like you said, it's very normal. And if you try to do it all, you will hurt yourself. If you try to do it all and you don't reach for support, and I know that that can be scary, and I know that that takes a lot of bravery, particularly if you are a confident, independent person. If you reach out for support and you are really specific in your ask, it is an easier ask to make than just saying, I need help. How many times have people reached out to you and said, like, how can I help? And it's like, I don't know. It's so much easier if it's like, I'm coming over on Tuesday to clean your house. I'm going to bring over lasagna. My daughter baked cookies for you and they're going to show up in the mail, and don't eat them because she dropped them on the floor, right? Like, these types of directives are so much easier. And if you can do that for yourself, that is the lever, right? You find out what really matters, you get really clear about it, and you state it. When you try it all, you fail. Absolutely. When you try it all, you fail. And look, fail is like my second 4-letter word, because sometimes you can fail hard and fast and rebound and learn something incredible, and then something beautiful comes out of the ashes of this. But like in this instant, there's no time to fail, right? When your energy is drawn from a bunch of different places, there's no time to fail. So, as you know, as you can tell probably from this litany that I just said, like, there weren't two changes, right? The change was the diagnosis, because, and you know, with diagnosis, he's like, you can't unknow. It's then always there. And like, it's in the back of her mind. And like, literally, mine was in the back of my mind. So it was with me all the time. And then the second change was when I was reintegrating and realizing that the day-to-day things had continued, even though I was fundamentally different. So when I returned to work, it was an opportunity to focus really on what mattered to me. So that's my second example, my friends. And let me just, in these few minutes that we have left together before I want to open it up to questions and answers, I have a question for you. I am curious, what is one big change that you are avoiding because it feels a little out of control? I'm going to give you just a moment to jot this down in your summit workbook. So what's one big change that you're avoiding because it feels out of control? And I see thinking faces. So I'm going to prompt you with the second question, but know that you can continue thinking about this beyond our time together today. The second question is thinking about the 5 hows of changing change that we ripped through together today. What's one lever, one element, one area that you can start using to influence how change impacts or disrupts your life? You can jot that down on your notebook too. And my final question for you is, what's one reward or celebration that you can gift to yourself tonight for facing this change head on and starting to reclaim your control? So I'm not going to ask you to put these reflections in the chat. However, if you would like support, if you would like celebration, if you want to chat about it more, I just put my email in the chat. You are welcome to send me a message. We can connect and celebrate. Or I can challenge you a little bit, push you a little bit if you're open to that, or just support you and where you're at. So, my friends, during our time together, we talked about what change management really is. We learned about the 5 hows of bringing about responsive change and how to proactively use them to disrupt change before it disrupts you. And we talked a little bit about how to start finding that balance, that dissonance. William used the word jazz earlier. I think that's really what it is, to like bring the jazz to our personal life, our business life, and the messy middle. Plus, we started influencing on a big change that we've been avoiding potentially because it feels out of our control. And we've kickstarted your journey to reclaiming that control. So if you check out your conference goodie bag, you will see that I have left you with a change management cheat sheet that has my 6 favorite questions to ask yourself to get to the heart of understanding and disrupting change. And I invite you to remember, you don't have to do this alone. And so, if you would love to connect, I would love to connect with you so that way we can keep the conversation going, and bring some healthy disruption to your business and your life. And I think we have some time for questions before we conclude for the day. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all of your beautiful faces in full scale.
We have some people who are not on camera and
Yeah,
and you know, always have people watching recordings as well.
super. Well, my email is there. I think my email is also, it was up on the screen. If you're watching the recording, you're welcome to respond to me there and let me know what questions you have too. Oh, and it's on this screen as well. Thank you so much, Kari Lynn.
Trying to
Yeah,
make sure we're all covered.
amazing.
So, so I was going to suggest, and maybe you can comment on this, Kari, but
Yeah.
if a person has that oh my gosh thing that they've been avoiding changing,
Mm-hmm.
um, and maybe doesn't know the whole path of changing it, um, is it still okay to start exploring and stepping into the beginning of the change? And I was going to suggest that people jot down maybe the first step they thought they would take, or depending on the situation, sometimes it's more helpful to think about what direction you think you want to go,
Yeah.
even if it's not exactly you know, the whole path isn't laid out. What do you think about that?
I really appreciate that effort, especially because it helps you start to prepare for whatever may come, or to think about how or where it's going to fit into the panoply of other things you've got going on. You get to start making room for it, even if you don't know how big or how small it is. I love that idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So start with either steps or perspective, but
Yeah,
it's worth jotting down in the notebook.
absolutely.
Um, you know, what's that next piece of thought that's gonna help you address that thing
Yes.
that you've identified that needs addressing.
Yeah, definitely.
And it is just kind of a one step at a time thing, right?
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, if you, I mean, unless you're an octopus and you can like do all of the things because you've got 8 arms, it's absolutely one step at a time. I don't know that like multitasking is truly a fallacy. And
Mhm.
so if you tried to do too many things at once, if you tried to do everything at once, you're not going to do anything particularly well. And you won't have your full attention on the thing to be able to see like what is important, or how does doing this cause this effect over here. So please take it one step at a time. Please take it one moment at a time. It's funny. My niece, when she was 4, she started telling these jokes about elephants. She loved elephant jokes, loved them. And her favorite elephant joke uh really applies to change management. And her favorite joke is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Mm.
One bite at a time. When you look at the elephant, it's enormous, and you might think like, I don't even know how to get started. I don't know where to begin. One bite. You just take one bite. So like, what's one step? What's one thought? What's one thing that you can do today or this hour if you feel like you are a high performer today? And then what's the next thing? And sometimes the next thing doesn't even have to feel like a logical, it doesn't have to feel like it's A to B. It could be A to Q if that's what's feeling right for you that day. If that's where you have space or energy or resourcing, whatever that means, to operate that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. It does seem like we're all change managing kind of all the time,
Yes.
but when something big comes along, um, it's a little more so. Um,
Yeah, the weather is about to change dramatically here. We knew that it was fall. It wasn't until everybody's phones started chiming with like what national weather alerts that people were like, "Oh no, got to go to the grocery store and buy all the things and fill up all the bathtubs and all the things." And it's just like, maybe it's just rain.
yeah.
Maybe it's just
Yeah,
rain.
if you're a little prepared, then
Yeah.
you don't have to be as anxious about what's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes change is good. I'm adjusting a little bit to change myself because I went away for 2 weeks this summer and it was amazing and it shifted me. And
Hey.
yeah, in mostly good ways. I have a lot more confidence in myself now because I could be
Wonderful.
away for 2 weeks and handle it.
Yes.
Uh, but but it is still like, oh, okay, that like changed a lot of things, and now
How thrilling though. What a wonderful reason to just be like, let's talk about how things are different.
Mhm. Yeah,
Let's reset based on who I am now.
yeah, yeah.
What's the biggest way that you were feeling different that's like impacting the way you do business?
Mm. So one of my big discoveries was that the stuff that I thought was important is, but it doesn't have to be quite. So I was commenting earlier about having guardrails and then wiggle room between the guardrails.
Yes, yes.
Um, I think my areas between the guardrails are a lot bigger than I realized that they really could be.
Oh,
Yeah. And so then the question is, all right, so if I was used to structuring everything around the guardrails, how should it be structured now?
yes. Huh.
Um,
It's a
yeah,
skydive, isn't it?
a little bit.
That's neat. Are you feeling like you before this 2 weeks away is saying like put a lot of structure, put the structure? Are you feeling internal pressure to like build that out, or are you letting there be sort of this freedom, this space?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a part of me that is saying that no, I am that part of me is completely unwilling to go back to the same level of structure.
Yes.
So now there's like okay, so how much structure is
Hmm.
okay?
Yeah. Thanks for listening to her though. Be like, that's not going to serve us, so we're going to do this some other way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And having the discussion within myself of, all right, so we don't want to do it the old way.
Yes.
And we can see from how things went that doing nothing could eventually be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we find that happy middle win-win
Yeah.
that lets the part of me that benefits from wiggle room
Uh-huh.
have it
Uh-huh.
without wiggling right off the edge of the cliff?
Yes, please don't wiggle off the edge of the. I mean, here's my hand. I will grab you. I won't
Thank
let you
you.
fall. We won't let you fall. Um, Amazing. Well, congratulations. That's really exciting.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
That's a journey that's very cool to say yes to. I can't wait to see. I just can't wait to watch. I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's fortunately the process is fun, if not entirely complete.
Mm, that's
Something
right.
about completion is attractive, but you know,
Sure.
there-
Well, you can, enjoy the adventure along the way. I call that the
yeah.
fun known, by the way. The space in
Ooh,
between like where you are and where you think you're going. I call it the fun known, FUNKNOWN. Because it's a place of like exploration and discovery and adventure and like misadventure. Um, and sometimes, you'll end up where you want to be, but you might not, the journey that you took to get there may be very different than you originally expected. Uh, and or you may get to where you wanted to be, but how it looks is different because of the experiences you've had along the way that you were open to.
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
welcome to the fun known.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Um, well, I think that we're at time, which makes me
We
sad because
are.
this is fun.
Yes, it was. And I guess I want to encourage folks to follow up with you, and I'm
Please.
looking forward to our future conversations.
Me too.
And and yeah, let's see where all this takes us.